Oh my God, and we're back.
And we are.
And
Welcome
we're
back.
Welcome back. Oh my God.
Wow.
How are you feeling today? It's been quite the 24 hours.
It sure has. It sure has.
We have seen the new movie.
And
Snow
what movie
White.
is that?
Snow White.
Snow White. Yeah.
And girl, we recorded a full episode yesterday.
We sure did. Yeah.
About the movie.
Yeah.
We listened back to it and we thought, we cannot release this.
No, this is in the archives. Maybe this will be for like the Patreon subscribers someday.
Yeah. It was, let's just say, like, we are very passionate, like, Disney, like, fans. We really love, like, Disney, and we just felt very strongly, we have some strong opinions. We'll just say that. Yeah.
I think that's a really generous way of saying it. I'm like, you know what? I'll be the first to tell you, I can admit, my flaws, and I'll just say, like, it's not a flaw, but like, I'm just not a Snow White girly. Like, she's not my princess.
Yeah.
She never has been, whatever. However, I am a Disney girly.
Yes.
Not to say that I'm a purist, because I think that's a different thing. I'm very open to these live action reimaginings.
Sure.
Loyal listeners know we just did a whole episode about it last week. Had a lot of fun doing it, talking about it, and had a lot of positive things to say about, honestly, almost all of them. Really, all of them.
Yeah.
Like,
I think there's
some
positive
things,
aspects in each live action that they've
including
done.
Snow White. Let's just say it from the top in the first 90 seconds. We'll just say
we're gonna be as positive as we can about this. Like,
while still being honest.
Let's
be real. Let's just be really real, okay?
Let's be really real.
Because by the time you're listening to this, the audience score is out, and it's quite generous.
It is generous.
More generous than you and I will be.
Yes. I mean, let's be real. The critic score is 45 on Rotten Tomatoes. It is a stinker, honey. It's a rotten tomato. However, I was reading up on audience scores, and they're usually much higher than critics, of course.
Yeah.
So, like, and, like, thinking back to our showing yesterday, like, there were a lot of families in the theater that seemed to be really enjoying themselves.
Absolutely.
Like, people clapped at the end of the movie.
They did.
So I was like, maybe this isn't, like, for me, even though I'm a Disney fan. Maybe it's just for, like, regular old families that, aren't super passionate about, like, Disney like we are. And maybe that's fine.
Yeah, but for me, as like the main character of the universe, like, I was just disappointed that they didn't, like, make this movie specifically
cater
for
to me,
my taste and aesthetic.
Cater to me. Exactly.
Yeah. No, but all jokes aside, I agree with you. I think that that's exactly it. I think if you are like a casual Disney fan, like, maybe you don't go to the parks every year, maybe you haven't been since you were a child, or you've never been, but like, that like Disney equals like little kids, and you are a parent of like a couple young kids, and you're like, oh, I guess this is like the family movie now, let's go see this. Sure. And then go see the Minecraft movie next weekend, because that's also for kids. This will just be like something that we do. I'm sure, yes, you probably would have enjoyed this film, as we saw on our showing. And that's
agreed. And that's that. And hey, look, we even got these nice little commemorative...
We did. Listen, the aesthetics, we'll get into it, but the aesthetics were great. So, I mean, one of the strongest parts of the film.
Agreed. I actually think this is a very cute little souvenir.
Me too. It's going on the shelf. This is going in my little display, in the future, because I think it's pretty cool.
Fit a small child inside.
You really could. Yeah, it's huge. They were like, do you want the collectible cup? And we were both like, yeah! Yes! And then they passed this, like, sandbox bucket across the counter at us, and we were like, whoa!
Girl, the amount of carbonation in my body from that soda that I drank out of this yesterday was intense.
I loved it, though. I
liked it too.
Crispy.
You had a Starry.
I had a Starry, and it was
nice Starry. I had a nice Pepsi Zero.
Nice, yeah.
I love a Pepsi Zero at the movies.
Yeah, it is.
Wait, did you notice? Do you see my background?
I do. I love it.
It's a nice little, like, cottage enchanted forest screensaver on my TV. I thought it would be very appropriate.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, I love it. It's very on theme.
I love. I
don't actually have any Snow White like dolls or memorabilia. I felt like it would be cool to include if I had them, but like I was saying, she's just like not really my girl.
Yeah,
but I will say, like, some of these collectible dolls and stuff that have come out from this are pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. I might end up.
No, they are.
So we'll see.
Period. And I also want to say, when I got home last night, I did watch the OG.
Nice.
Just to, like,
yeah.
Remember like what
Palate
I was working
cleanser.
With here.
Yeah.
Palate cleanser. I will say I fell asleep. Like, it's pretty boring.
Yeah, there's a lot of slow parts.
Definitely not the best movie ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it also has its parts where I'm like, oh yeah, like that's iconic. But we'll get into it.
Right. So in that sense, this adaptation was very true to the original.
Period. So for this review, we decided to break it down into like 3 categories. We needed. Yesterday we were really just ranting and raving.
Yeah.
It was just really intense, honestly. So we're gonna try to keep ourselves on track today. We got 3 parts. We're gonna talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly.
And boy, is there some ugly to talk about.
Quite a list. But first, we're going to start with the good, because there were aspects of this movie that were enjoyable.
Absolutely.
So the first thing is just like the modernization of like the classic 1937 version, like music and songs. The ones that they kept, I thought were really great in the movie.
I agree. Thought that they 100%.
I thought they were the best parts of the movie.
Literally, yeah, without hesitation, I would say that. I would say, and which is surprising to me, again, for all the reasons that I've said before. Like, I'm not a Snow White girly. Like, that music's almost 100 years old. Like, I would not have expected to be like, oh, Whistle While You Work is such a fun, catchy tune. And it was, to me, the highlight of the whole movie.
The highlight of the movie, period.
Truly. Like, and I was like smiling during it. I was like, wow, she's so cute. And like, this is such a fun little ditty.
Like, weirdly enough, like I actually enjoyed the CGI dwarves in that part. I was like, oh, this is like honestly very cute. I'm like feeling the fantasy here.
But yeah, and the setting inside the cottage was beautiful. Like it was just a really
animals,
cute.
I thought it was really, really beautifully done. Like I felt like that part, that scene, like the artistry behind it, it was there.
Yep.
I was feeling it.
And there were, I would also say that was like one of the few places in the movie where it was, they successfully blended some like contemporary turns of phrase and sensibilities. For example, one of them attempts to whistle and can't, and she's like, looks at him and like winking goes like, you'll get it. And it's like,
yeah, that was so cute.
Okay. Yeah, that's cute. Like, that's fun. You're giving us some little infusions of like contemporary kind of like how a teenage girl would talk. Like, I get it.
Totally.
You know? And I'm like, yeah, that was appropriate. And it felt like a nice meshing of like the old school and the modern day. If only the whole movie was like that.
Totally. I mean, listen, even Heigh, I thought like the modernization of that song, like how they incorporated their names into the song and like what they like, you know.
So fun.
You know, who they are, what their name is. And like, you know, obviously if they're sleepy, they're falling asleep. Like it was cute, like the way they did that and incorporated that into the song.
I agree. Yeah, it was funny. They like built it out a little bit. They gave each of them something to do and like gave them a little bit more characterization. Yeah. Again, that song, far from a bop, just period, let alone in the original. But like, yeah, I mean, in this, it was a highlight of this. And again, similarly, because the visuals, like it was very cool to see them in the diamond mine and like on the, you know, thing. And yeah, I'll agree with Grace Randolph. It did make me want to ride the roller coaster at Magic Kingdom.
It made me want to ride the roller coaster. The only thing that was confusing about that part, of course, was the fact that I guess they create the diamonds that they mine, but
it's very unclear because their hands glow and then they put them on the rocks and then the rocks glow and then they mine the diamonds out of them. So
sure,
it makes sense if you don't think about it. Yeah,
exactly.
Great.
You just can't think about it too deep. Yeah.
Were those the only 2 songs that they kept in the whole?
Yes, and you know, obviously, like watching the OG last night, they took out like the Wishing Well song, which is iconic.
Why don't you give us a little impression of that? What is that?
How does it go? I'm wishing for.
Yeah, like her vibrato is out of control.
It's out of control. I'm like, oh my God, how did they think this sounded good? It's really bad.
37, yeah.
Man. The other one that I forgot about, that's actually a great song, is
yeah, with a smile and a song.
With a smile and a song. Yeah. It actually is a great song.
There's no reason it shouldn't have been able to stay. Frankly, all of them. Agree. But like that one especially, I'm like, why wasn't that in there? Like
it should have been. Because that actually is a great song. It's like great. After she's running through the forest and getting scared shitless, you know, she like meets all the animals.
Yeah, it's with all the animals and everything.
Yeah, it's like cute. It's really cute.
And they still do have that moment, like that beat in the movie. She does have that like, oh, it's but there's no singing, which it just feels, we cut space to put in princess problems instead. We'll get into it. Yeah, but I'm sorry, and I know that this is, again, we'll get into it, but like Someday My Prince Will Come, like that is the iconic Snow White I want song. It just is. Like, yeah, I would have loved to find a creative way to
incorporate a prince, even if he was a modern prince, even whatever, we'll get into it.
I don't think they needed to cut it, but anyway.
Yeah, anyway. So yeah, I guess thinking about it, they really only kept like 2 classic songs. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. But they were excellent. They were great, beautiful
They were
gowns.
good.
Yeah.
Best parts of the movie. Okay.
I agree.
The next point, we thought some of the costumes, I want to like put that in just like bold.
There's an asterisk next to
Yeah,
it.
asterisk, like some of the costuming was great.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll say, like, you know, Sandy Powell, excellent, obviously Academy Award winning costume designer. You know her work from Cinderella. We talked about it a lot last week in the bracket. I think that is truly a masterpiece. Like that rendition of Cinderella's blue, silver, whatever you want to call it, it's blue. Amazing. In the live action ball gown is gorgeous, absolutely stunning, as are all of the costumes in that film. She also did the costumes for Mary Poppins Returns for Disney, also really great job with that. This one, I think she did a pretty solid job with the ones that really needed to count. So, for example, the iconic Snow White costume, that like tricolor, red, yellow, and blue primary color, you know, the Snow White dress, and the iconic Evil Queen costume. I think both of them passed the squint test, like with some definite like modern updates and touches. And they definitely, you know, they're 4 films, so they both have more like texture and depth and visual interest to them than like a cartoon, but they feel unique. I have a little notes here and there on all of them, but I do think that those kind of big 2, like Snow White and the Evil Queen's costumes, she nailed and they looked great.
Agreed. I loved like the sequins of like the Evil Queen's dress underneath the cloak. I thought that was beautiful.
Really cool.
I loved the addition of like the jewels and like the fact that like as she kept like getting more evil and like, you know, just her storyline progressed, she was adding more and more jewels.
Such
to,
a
like,
great moment. Costume. I loved that.
Great idea. Mm-hmm. Great moment. Yeah, and I honestly, I liked Snow White's dress with a few things that were kind of But like overall, I thought it was really pretty. I think you mentioned this yesterday, but like when she had the blue like thing over the skirt, like there was like, you know, a 2-piece skirt and there was like a blue piece on top and then the yellow was underneath. When she had the blue over the yellow, that was really
gorgeous.
Like that was beautiful.
Yeah, because you see this great shot of her like running up the hill through the woods to like pick apples, and she just, I mean, literally like takes your breath away. You're like, wow, that's just like an iconic,
like that shot was beautiful,
like Disney princess like shot. She looked excellent, and it's interesting because they traded that piece and the function of that piece for the cape in the animated, because in the animated, when she runs through the forest, the cape gets like ripped off by like the trees, and that's what happens to this overskirt in the movie. It gets like snagged and ripped off, and then you never see it again. It's like the whole rest of the movie she just has the yellow skirt.
That's a change that I honestly like. I actually liked the live action adaptation of that. Like, I don't think she needed the cape. Watching it last night, it was like a black cape, and it just like, it wasn't like cute. Like, I'm glad they went with like that update.
Yeah, it's a little bit more like time period appropriate too, in this like imaginary time period, but it definitely I think was cool. My critiques are very nitpicky for that costume in general. I just think the colors were a little off for me. They were very saturated, and we'll get into it a little bit, kind of how it fits into the environment. They were just a little too like my rods and cones on my eyes were like at certain points like
rods and cones.
Yeah, like the yellow is very yellow, like especially compared to the animated, which we were talking about it yesterday. Her skirt in the animated is almost like cream.
It's pretty
like,
soft.
It's like
it's
barely yellow. It's like a whisper. And this one, it's like citron. It's yellow. And then just some little like style lines on this. You'll notice if you look at it up close, like where the like bodice waist hits the skirt is just flat, and it's like a straight line. She has a little belt, which is cute, but like it's flat. And then the skirt itself is like a good 6 inches off the floor. So then there's all these like horizontal lines like cutting her in half, and it just makes her look very like stout.
Totally.
And it just sucks because when you see from the back, which you see from the back a lot, she has that iconic Snow White collar, and there's some really gorgeous like style lines in it that have this like really great sweetheart shape to them. And I'm like, I wish you would have just brought the bodice to a point in the front.
Totally.
Just give us this like elegant little shape. It would have looked so much more like feminine and delicate and soft. And it's just like little stuff like that I'm like, you're a world-class costume designer. Like, how
it's like
we
they were
end up
so
here?
Close. It's like they were so close with that.
Yeah. And the Evil Queen stuff, like she delivered on that 100%. I feel like.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially when she does during the Queen's added musical number, and she has the big white like collar piece on too, like finally all the way goes there. I was like, oh, okay, this is amazing. Plus her makeup in that scene, which was like chef's kiss. She looked
it was great.
sickening. Like the glitter lipstick with like the long nails that are like stained glass, and then the super cut crease like beat eye makeup and like the false lashes. I was like, I'm there.
She was giving. She was giving.
Great. Yeah. And that's about the
Yeah,
only thing she gave.
And then, I mean, do we talk about the wig? The wig was just...
Yeah, I think the wigs are a solid part of the asterisk on this. Is like,
yeah,
the wig was... So I will say, for the storyline purpose, I appreciate the storytelling of like, why does she have this like blunt bob in like 1500 when everybody else has long hair? And it was a storyline piece of like, oh, it was punishment from the evil queen. So I'm like, that I appreciated as a storytelling.
I agree. I thought
device.
That was good backstory.
If only there was somebody who worked in continuity on this film. I don't know where they were taking a nap for the 9 months that they filmed this movie or whatever, because I was like, her hair is shoulder length, it's chin length, it's brown, it's
wet,
black,
it's dry,
it's tight, it's like big, it's curly, it's
sometimes
wavy.
It's got like the curl underneath, sometimes the curl's like out. I'm like, I have no idea what was going on.
Yeah, and before anyone comes for us and it's like, she goes through a journey, she falls underwater, she's da-da-da. I agree, I understand. I watched the film, actually. But what I don't understand is, like, in the same scene, we're cutting back and forth between, okay, it was at her bob, like, on her chin, and now it's down to her shoulders, and it was brown 2 seconds ago, and now it's black. Yeah. It's giving, like, Dorothy's hair in The Wizard of Oz, where it's like, oh, didn't she just have pigtails? Why is it just down all of a sudden? It was all over the place. I was like, this is taking me out. I don't understand what we're doing here. So that was a low point for me.
That's an asterisk, but
yeah.
I mean, again, you know, the costumes, those two specifically.
Squint test, overall, yes, that is. I mean, you look at this, like that is the evil queen. Iconic. That is Snow White.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure. Cute.
Yeah.
Okay, so for I guess the last thing that we thought was good about the movie, I did feel like they had some good messaging throughout. Again, another asterisk, but like overall, like the plot line of it being like, what's better, like being, you explain this actually. I feel like you like explained it so well.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was cool to see, I will say, the messaging that they intended to. That's my clarification on that. The messaging that they, I think, intended to get across was good and positive, and I appreciated where they were trying to go. I don't think they delivered on it really wholly, but it was, you know, you could see where they were going, which is, they did do a nice job of making this story where Snow White in the original version is fairly passive. She's definitely like, you know, she literally sings a song about like wanting to be like rescued by a prince and waiting around and whatever. And they do a nice job of updating it with a more contemporary sensibility where she has like this much more developed character. And she ultimately, I mean, spoiler alert, obviously this whole episode, becomes the queen at the end. And the final shot of the movie is, of course, the iconic storybook. And it's just her. It's not her and her love interest or anything. It's her, and she's wearing a crown. And it's very like, she is the new queen of the land. And it's very cool to see the journey that they give us little glimpses of here and there, going from like, I don't know if this is for me, I need to find my dad to like help, you know, bring the kingdom back to peace, to like, oh no, maybe I can do this on my own and I don't need to like wait for some man to like do it. I can be the hero. In doing so without being like cringy and whatnot, I feel like it was fairly sincere and it showed a nice character arc for Snow White, which I appreciated. I just wish that they executed on it a little better, but
I agree. And I think like the way that they like played off like the evil queen and like her storyline, like she was of the mindset that like the beauty was like the most important thing. Like that's what got her ahead. So like what's more important, like, you know, to like, I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but like, you know, like to be, yeah.
I think that's another place where it was like they almost went there, but they didn't go all the way.
It's like, even me explaining it, I'm like, actually, like, I see what they were trying to say, but like, they actually didn't say it.
Yeah, I think they would have more effectively made the point if the evil queen died the same way she did in the first one, in the like animated, which is like,
and if she didn't go back to being beautiful,
she should have died as the ugly hag, because the message would have been vanity is not the answer. She thought that it was, and then she sacrificed this thing that was so important to her, her beauty and her vanity, to like be the most beautiful of them all, and that ends up being her downfall. Literally, she falls off a cliff to her death. And I feel like the fact that she just like inexplicably changes back into being beautiful, and we don't see how or why or whatever, and then she just like dies like that, is just kind of like, okay, well, you almost got there, I think.
You almost got it.
Yeah, so it was like a lot of things in this movie. It was like close but no cigar.
Yeah, it's like they
But also
even
not
try
that
to
close.
they obviously like try to do stuff with Dopey as well. And I feel like, again, like I felt like they were going in a great direction there. Like maybe there was going to be like an anti-bullying message, but like it just didn't fully execute. It was like very like, okay, so he just doesn't want to talk because he's afraid to talk.
Mm-hmm.
But
And then spoiler alert, he just does talk.
And he's the narrator, so
I feel like you and I both immediately rolled our eyes. We're like, brother.
And everybody like literally screamed
like
in our
cheering.
show. Everybody was like, oh my God, he can talk. I was like, please.
Yeah. Who are you people? Yeah.
Literally.
Yep. So that concludes the good.
That's it. Moving on to the bad.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
get into it,
first
sister.
thing first, new songs. Horrible.
What the hell?
The mix of like the old school 1937 like vibe of the song, of like those songs, with the like Greatest Showman vibe songs, which is very contemporary, is so jarring like so uncomfortable. The amount of talk singing, I'm not a fan of talk singing. And like most of the new songs, that was what it was.
Yep.
It was just too much.
Yeah.
Every time they opened their mouths, me and you were just literally like,
here we go
I
again.
Can't.
Yeah.
Like, why do they don't even need to have, like, I feel like they didn't even need to add new songs.
Yeah. I think that's like one of the problems we were discussing immediately after, like in the parking lot leaving. We're like, I don't understand why they chose to add the songs that they did and why they chose to cut the songs that were in the original. Like it just, they were just such strange decision making like in this. I was like, so we're adding songs that aren't really forwarding the plot just to like throw a song in because you feel like they need it. Like, prime example, why is the evil queen singing at all? I don't need her to sing. Specifically, no. I don't need Gal Gadot to sing, but I don't need the evil queen's character to sing. Like, I don't need that from her. You know what I mean? It's like Jafar doesn't need to sing. Like, I don't need necessarily for there to be this like jubilant, like up and down, like it's
crazy, like villain song. Yeah, like I definitely don't need that. And honestly, like her song didn't really give villain. It was like giving, I don't know, like funny, campy, weird.
It was like sassy trying to be charming or something. I'm like, stop trying to make her like sympathetic. I don't need
I just wanted her to be evil. Like that's like the one thing,
especially
like
because
really
she
missing.
literally says that exact line in the movie. She's like, you said it yourself, I'm evil, I'm heartless. Like she says it out loud. She's like, this is my motivation, I am evil. That's it. So then why are we singing this like tee-hee-hee, like prancing around, like, and she was prancing. That was the choreography was prancing, honey. I was like, what are we doing here? That was a low point. I thought Princess Problems was such a low point, as
probably honestly the lowest point of the movie.
Yeah, it's a tie between that and the slow-mo when he was singing his whatever version of like, and at last I see the light, whatever. He was singing some version of that, basically, of his like, oh, I'm waking up and realizing that I'm in love with Snow White. And she's like slow-mo, like dancing around. You and I were both like
slow-mo. Yeah, it was like terrifying. I was like, what is happening?
Yeah. So that was really, really bad. And then there was a reprise of the Evil Queen song. Again, I'm like, I didn't need the first one. I certainly don't need the reprise.
And the fact that the reprise was during the transformation
took the place of the transformation, which was sacrilege. Yeah, that was
sacrilege. The most iconic scene, probably like the only real like iconic scene of the first original movie is the transformation, and like the way that scene was butchered.
They really shit the bed on that.
Really shit the bed on that. Yeah. It just it didn't hit.
It did not hit at all for countless reasons. Yeah, so I would say the music in general. I will say a little disclaimer. I think Pascal and Paul are great. Greatest Showman is fun, but what makes Greatest Showman fun is that it's like there's a established universe and there's rules in that universe, and they follow the rules that they set for themselves. This one, as is a problem that we'll get into later, they're just so all over the place with everything. I'm like, why are we shoehorning these like very, very contemporary sounding songs in with these almost 100-year-old songs from the classic? I just felt like if they were going to add new music, they should have gone with like Alan Menken and given us like classic Disney so that it kind of fit in there seamlessly. This was just so choppy and jarring. So much of it was so unnecessary, both from a plot and character development standpoint, but also just eating up time in the movie for what purpose? Like it just did not hit for me at all. I was like, this music is taking me out every single time.
And like Waiting on a Wish, like that song, I feel like on its own isn't bad. Like I
It's
actually
not.
I kind of like it.
Yeah.
But in the context of the movie, I just felt like it just felt so out of place.
The lyrical
Like
turn of
literally
phrase.
lyrical, like, yes, we literally were like, okay, she's like underneath 1,000 treetops. She's waiting on a wish.
Literally.
I was like, where are the trees?
Giant
She's literally
skyscape behind her.
Literally, she's on the roof of a castle. There are no trees around her.
Literally not in the shot,
like,
not in the frame, not even the whole song. And she's like, beneath 1,000 treetops. I'm like, baby, where are the trees? Like,
I'm like, girl, what are these trees that you speak of?
Truly.
You're in a concrete jungle.
She's losing it. Yeah. I was like,
she's losing her mind.
I don't know. I said to you yesterday, I was like, I think the song itself is cute and Rachel sounds wonderful on it. Her voice is great. There's no denying her vocals are wonderful. But I'm like, it should have just been a promo single. Let it play during the credits, be the contemporary song that plays after the movie. It didn't need to be in the actual like hour and 40 minutes of the film. It could have played during the credits at the end and I would have been like, great, okay, sure. Like, I didn't need it.
So. I didn't need it. Yeah. Well,
that's that.
Moving on. The next thing, honestly, for me was really when the movie started to go downhill fast is when we were introduced to not one, but two sets of 7 misfit people, dwarves / another set of 7 that were like bandits, ?
Yeah.
Like, an acting troupe.
Yeah, the improv troupe.
I literally couldn't have been more annoyed and frustrated that they decided to give us 2 sets of 7 like people.
Absurd.
And then mash them together.
Like this, I feel like this really speaks to the like central problem of the whole movie, which is like, it's just very written by committee. Everybody had a say and nobody had an editing pen. We all just threw all of it in the pot and then we just like put the slop in the trough and went out to print. Like, there it is. I'm like, I just don't understand, because it's very clear that 7 merry band of thieves or whatever were, I feel like, to reference and give the same spirit of the 7 dwarves, because they were like, oh, we don't want to get into dwarves. It's a little like, sticky. Peter Dinklage gave us some grief for that. We don't want to like really cast 7 little people. It might not be great. And yet one of them was a little person. Great. Okay. Make 1 or 3 or all 7 of them little people. Fine. But then why do we have CGI dwarves to avoid that? Similarly, and I'm just going to go there because I noticed it immediately, and then I turned to you and I was like, what are we doing?
What are we doing here?
The seven dwarves, or the 7, not the 7 dwarves, the 7 friends, whatever they are like a diverse group of people. They're like people of color in it, and they're all genders and body types and heights and whatever, and that's great. And right, okay. And then the 7 dwarves are all
white,
old little white men, one of which is voiced by Titus Burgess. I'm like, okay, so why he white? I'm like, why wasn't he just like a black dwarf? I don't understand. I was like, what are we doing?
Are you white?
I immediately turned to you and I was like, why are you white? What is happening?
Yeah.
So again, it's just a very like, so you didn't want to like offend people by changing the dwarves from what they originally were, but then you did this instead. We're trying to split the fence very unsuccessfully here.
It was very unsuccessful. And you know what? It was like really annoying to me, because I thought the thing I was going to hate the most about the movie was the CGI dwarves. But it actually turned out to, like, I actually liked them. Like,
I found it inoffensive. I thought it was
you know what? It's inoffensive. Like, I actually don't mind if we're suspending disbelief and just going with it, saying the dwarves are mystical creatures out in this enchanted forest, and they're just like CGI. They're not human. I'm here for it. Like, let's just go with that. Like, I thought they looked fine. Like, it didn't bother me.
Yeah.
So it's like, if we're gonna do that, like, let's just stick with that. We don't need to introduce another 7 random people. Like, let's just
half of them don't have names. Half of them don't even speak. Like, literally, why are you?
Do any of them have names
on screen?
I couldn't say a single one of them.
The one with the slingshot. He kept being like, "I'm such and such of so and so, and this is my magic slingshot or whatever." I was like, okay,
okay,
really, like,
sure.
all right.
Okay.
I think what helped with the dwarves to like get over the like suspension of disbelief is that you're introduced to them already in CGI because they're like in the mine train, and so everything is like CGI.
Yeah,
so
everything's CGI.
Like, oh, okay, sure, yeah,
Their
I'm there,
cottage
I'm
is
in
CGI.
it. Exactly.
Like,
so it's
the
like,
forest that they're in is CGI. It's like, great, sure,
right. And so then when you do integrate
that.
them with like Rachel Zegler later and like real people, it was like, okay, fine. You know what? We've already gotten used to them. The shock of like what they look like is kind of, we're over it now. So it's like, it's okay. So actually, I agree. Like, I wouldn't say that I like loved them, but they did not take me out of it. I was like, okay, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Wow.
And then but I will say, like, the scene when they're all together, like all 14,
Girl,
that
pissed me off.
That pissed me off so much.
Yeah.
Like when they're at like the scene from the OG 1937 where they're like doing like their little dance party and it's actually very cute, whatever.
Yeah.
In this version, all 14 of them are together having a dance party. And I'm just like,
yeah,
my eyes, it's
just too much.
Literally, like, could I rip them out of my skull right now because I don't know what I'm looking at.
And also to the point before about like being for children and then whatever, I'm like, that's a lot to pay attention to. I'm like, this is so convoluted. I was like, so there's 14 people they have to keep track of now? Who the hell are these people? Like, what?
Who the hell are these people is right.
Like
what?
It's just not for me. I don't know.
It's just not for me.
Yeah. I will say, quick side note though, because while we're talking about the CGI, kind of the dwarves not being like the worst thing ever, I will say like another kind of positive thing is felt like the way they CGI'd the animals was really successful.
Oh, really great.
I remember saying to you afterwards, like, I was like, this is what the Lion King should have looked like, because the animals definitely looked like realistic. Like they had fur, they weren't like crazy colors or anything. Like they looked, you know, like quote unquote real animals, but they had like characterization to them. So they had very expressive faces, like their eyes were kind of exaggeratedly large, like they could smile, like stuff like that, but still looked like quote unquote real animals. And I'm like, this is, I mean, it took them 14 tries to get there, but Disney finally, I think, figured out how to do quote unquote live action animals in a way that felt like a nice marriage of like the cartoon, you know, but also
and realism
in a real life. So I was like, that was nice. And I feel like
the
dwarves also towed that line fairly successfully. So.
I think so too. And I think like the opening shot of like the book with like the seat, like, you know, with like the little hedgehog and the like chipmunk, I was like, that actually was so well done. So cute.
Yeah.
I loved that. Like the opening shot.
Yep.
And the end shot, I guess.
Yeah.
Were great.
Yeah, and literally like that moment that they cut "Smile" in a song from, but you still get the moment, I thought was literally gorgeous. Like
beautiful.
Literally a Thomas Kincaid painting where they do the slow pan out and it's just her sitting in the forest and, you know, she holds her finger out and the bluebird lands on it and little deer walks by and little rabbits. Yeah. I'm like, wow, this is really cute. They did a really good
well
job.
done. Really well done.
Yeah. Everything
However,
else.
The last thing I have for the bad before we get into the ugly is, you know, and we kind of briefly touched on this, but I feel like some of like the iconic big moments from like the 1937 film just did not do it justice. Like, again, starting with like the transformation of the witch into the hag.
So disappointing.
I mean, that for me, like, I remember watching that as a child and like being terrified, and like that moment for me, it truly like affected me as a kid.
Like I was scarring, like,
it's scarring, but it's so good.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Yeah,
like you said, when she like, you see the white hair like start to come out after she takes her gulp, and like the like room spinning, there's like thunder and lightning. You see like her skeleton through her hands, like as she's like turning
and like shrieking. And, like, there's like screaming happening in the background. Yeah,
like, she's like holding on to her neck because she's choking. Like, it is so intense. And then the cackle. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Like, and like, just like also the, just like what she's saying, the spell, like the words of the spell are like so iconic as well. She's like mummy dust to like make me old. She's like, you know, she's like a hag's cackle to disguise my voice. Like, she's like going through like all of these different things. Yes. And building it up, and like, And then she's like, a gust of wind. Like,
Yeah.
it's like crazy.
Yeah, and we don't get that. So
And, well,
what we got
we don't get
instead
that.
was like, I mean, it was literally, I said Snapchat filter. I was like, it literally just looks like she just got old really fast. Like, you see it happen before your eyes, and it's like, she doesn't look like a hag. She just looks like an old lady.
She just looks like an old lady.
Like, she had beach waves. She had beach waves, girl. Like, she had
I thought her hair actually was kind of cute.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, she's like a cute old lady. No, but to me, like, the hag needs to be absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
I sent you that TikTok, the video of like the 1980s. They did like a live stage version of Snow White at Radio City, and like,
excellent.
That transformation and like that hag, you could hear kids screaming in the audience.
Terrifying.
It was terrifying.
I mean, they do a better job in Fantasmic. Like, literally,
iconic.
The transformation in Fantasmic does a better job with that.
It's
like,
so scary.
It's terrifying.
It's so good.
And this volume is there, and the screaming, and the like, you see this big shock of like transformation. There's an explosion and all that. To back up 2 seconds, because it's immediately before this, and you saying the TikTok video made me think of it. Another kind of just moment broadly that they didn't really nail was like that, like you were saying, the spell, the speeches. Like, I want the magic mirror to give me that monologue in the spooky voice, and we don't really get that. I'm like, I wanted him to have those moments, because another one of the iconic moments they did not nail is the heart of a pig you hold in your hand. And I'm like, I wanted that. Like, that whole thing where he builds it up. He's like, across the 7 jeweled hills of the, like, I want that spooky, like, build this tension. She's
agreed.
Like all of that. Like, and it's not there. And then she opens the box, and it's not a pig's heart. It's a fucking apple. I was like,
it's an apple.
Oh, brother. Okay. Well,
girl, she could have at least like opened it and been like, a pig's heart, you know? Like,
yeah, just say it. You don't have to
like,
show us gore. It's fine, but like, acknowledge it. Like, again, it's just strange, because it's like, it's again splitting the fence unsuccessfully. It's like, if you didn't want to like be gruesome and talk about cutting her heart out and doing that, like, then don't say those lines. But she specifically tells the henchman to bring her the heart.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
So the fact that they don't, I'm like, so then you didn't just commit to the bit? It's okay. Like, she should have, you know what I mean? If they were going to shy away from being gruesome, then instead of saying, bring me her heart in this box, then she should have just been like, take her to the woods and finish her off. You know what I mean? Like, don't actually say it. Like, you know what I mean? The fact that like you get right to the edge and then they don't actually go there. I'm like, okay, like, all right, I guess. So that was kind of a bummer. I would say another big like visual that they just, we said it in the moment, that they didn't nail was the glass coffin.
They just,
it is morbid,
like slab of rock.
Like, I'm not debating the like merit of like the story. Like, it is creepy that he like kisses a dead body and all that, whatever. It's the aesthetic in the movie is gorgeous. Like, that's the whole thing, is that the dwarves do a tribute to her because they're miners and they have all the access to the treasures of the earth, gold and jewels, and they make this beautiful carved coffin for her, and she looks, you know, angelic and pristine, and it's like, it's a beautiful, like, sad moment. And then instead they just threw her out back with the rest of the garbage on this hot rock in the sun. I was like, okay.
I was like, okay, wow. It looked so uncomfortable too. It wasn't even like a flat rock. It was like, she looked like she was like mangled on it. I was like, girl.
It was really.
And then again, like you mentioned, the kiss. I mean, it's like, okay, so what are we trying to say here? Like, are we trying to be like woke? And if so, like, why is that the thing that they decided to keep? The fact that he kisses her on the mouth, her dead body.
Yeah. I just don't understand, because I'm like, you know, this isn't the first or second time that we've encountered this in a live action adaptation. We saw it in The Little Mermaid, which I feel like they did successfully. You know, there were, I would say, like, valid concerns about Kiss the Girl and consent and all of that. And they found a very nice way of like keeping the song, keeping the spirit. They changed one or two little words. They gave a little bit of backstory to like Ariel and Erik, where you see them fall in love. So it's like, okay, you recognize that there's consent even without speaking, but also like, they also make it clear with Ursula's potion or spell that like she doesn't remember she needs a kid. Right. Beautiful. Great. It's called creativity. Smart. You would think that the biggest movie studio in the world would have somewhere. Like, I just don't understand why they didn't find like a clever way to just like deal with that in this. And instead, again, they just like made nobody happy. They split the fence unsuccessfully, and I'm sitting in the middle with a picket up my ass. Like, I just don't understand.
Yeah.
So the ugly.
Tough. So the ugly. Okay, so
Can you
we're
tell
just
it's getting
say,
uglier? It's getting uglier.
It's getting uglier. I mean, I really want to try not to like just rail on it, but like, okay, so
Go
the
there.
character of Jonathan, they replaced the Prince Charming, with a new character who question mark was like a Robin Hood type, Flynn Rider,
Yeah.
Peter Pan.
Ish. It's like that archetype in Disney. It's
that
sort of
archetype.
like a good
Yeah.
bad boy.
Right.
Okay.
Let's just say that was a swing and a miss.
Horrible.
It was painful. Also, his costume.
That was truly the worst costume of the whole movie.
He was wearing a flannel hoodie.
Yep.
From PacSun.
Yep.
In like 2009, maybe.
Yeah.
That's the vibe.
His whole outfit. It wasn't just the hoodie. Everything about it was like, you could buy that in the mall today. You could literally go to the mall, go to, you know, Lucky Brand, whatever, the Buckle, I don't know. And you could walk right in and get a flannel hoodie and like a leather jacket and some like skinny jeans and some boots and walk out. And that's what he was wearing. And I'm like, here's the thing. I don't inherently have the problem with like updating kind of historical silhouettes and making them more contemporary. But again, the problem is you did not follow the rules that you already set for the kingdom in this film, which is that Snow White does not look contemporary at all. She is wearing what you would wear in like 15th century Germany. So why the fuck does he have a hoodie on? I'm like, what are we doing? Like,
and he never takes it off, even in like the last outfit, like the wedding cake moment where they're all in white and like it's like, you know, the last scene of the movie. I'm pretty sure he still has a hoodie on.
Yeah, he has,
and it's a white hoodie.
He has a hoodie. Yeah,
that made me so mad.
Yeah, I would say his entire characterization, and I will just lump his merry band of friends in with him.
Yeah,
the first thing I'm taking the axe to. If I'm the executive watching this movie, I'm like, I don't think we need a love interest at all. Let's just go there. Let's just get rid of the prince entirely. We don't need.
If we're not going to do a prince, we don't need any love interest.
None of it. Just get rid of him. Like.
And that's like that's what I keep thinking to myself, like, yeah, if they just like cut that whole storyline out, like maybe like just cut out an hour of the movie and like give us like 45 minutes of like the best parts, it actually would be like a really good movie.
Yeah, truly. I'm like, all the stuff with him, like
all of like the
could have been achieved elsewhere. Like she could have been brought back to life by the dwarves somehow. There could have been some sort of like, you know, breaking of the spell beyond a kiss. There could have been some sort of, you know, loophole that they built in that could have like worked around that. I think the whole like her showing her generosity to him in the beginning because he's stealing potatoes or whatever, like she could have shown that to her little peasant friend or whatever who keeps that raggedy old crown from the beginning.
Who started singing with her at the end.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Ooh, la, la, whatever she was saying. I was like, oh, as soon as she started singing, you and I were like, all right, I'm gonna go. I was like head for the parking lot. Yeah. So that just the whole prince and everything to do with him. Princess Problems, again, being the worst song in the film.
Worst song.
Everything about it, I was like, just get rid of it. Truly.
Oh, another thing. Yeah, and like that whole battle scene between
my god,
Jonathan and his band of misfits
versus
the king's
break.
The queen's guards, and that whole section of them in the forest, which is like literally it feels like an hour long.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably less, but it really feels so long because it's so dragged on.
Yeah.
It's just horrible.
Painful.
Every second of it, it's so painful. Like, it makes zero sense. Also, let's just talk about the juxtaposition between that scene and, like, when they're at the dwarves' cottage, that part of the forest, like, which is all CGI and, like, beautiful, to, like, that scene where they're, like, in a real-life forest.
A real forest, yeah.
It feels so weird and strange. Like, it feels two separate movies.
Mm-hmm.
But put into one.
And that's where you really see the flaws of the costuming come through, because it's like her dress is like highlighter in the real life forest. It's like so jarring. It's oh my god, like okay, all right.
Yeah, it's like what.
And then when she's in
the CGI version,
in the enchanted, you know, clearing where the cottage is, it's like okay, cute. Yeah, Thomas Kincaid. It's giving painting. Yes. It's giving, you know, imaginary. It's giving storybook. Like I get it. So I just, and again, even that, they could have successfully done both if they gave us like a rule to follow, which was, the real world is like the castle. And then once you pass through the enchanted forest in the woods, then it's like a magical land, right? But they didn't even do that. Nor did they even infer that.
No rules.
So again, it's like you could have very easily like written yourself out of this, but you just didn't. Like Truly,
didn't.
like what were we doing? Who did they screen
You
this
know,
for?
and
Like,
you know what other movie successfully did that? It was the like Beauty and the Beast, the live action.
Yeah.
You know how like that forest, like they had a whole backstory why the townspeople didn't
Like,
even
forgot.
remember that the castle was there, and like that it was like winter only in that section. Like they explained all of
see,
that.
it
Like,
can be done. Like,
it
it's
can
crazy.
be done, but like in this movie they just didn't. It just was so lazy.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
just like sloppy, poorly done. Yeah, not great. What else was ugly to you?
Gals acting, singing, dancing, question mark. I don't
Physicality.
what were we watching here? The physicality. I mean, the line reading got worse and worse, I feel, as the movie got on, from her specifically.
Yeah.
It was just like, I think it actually started off not too bad. Like I think you said, when she's like sitting at the table and she's like cracking like the shells while she's talking to Snow White, at like the long dinner table.
Yeah.
I thought actually that was like well done. And then that was really the highlight. Every scene progressively got worse for me with Gal in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
She looked beautiful.
Gorgeous. Like, truly beautiful. Face was like, you know, beat for the gods. She looked excellent. The costumes were great. She has a gorgeous body. Everything, it's like a hanger. Everything looks beautiful on it. Everything fits her wonderfully. Like, she very much looks the part.
Totally. But that's about it.
There are a couple things that I would say were like, I don't want to give credit to her for. It's more like the writing, and I frankly don't even really want to give credit to the writing. I'm remiss, but like there were a couple things I thought were cool. Like I thought like the like don't you mean were, or like knew, that part was good, where he was like, I know Snow White, and she said, I think you mean knew.
You
I was
knew.
like,
yeah, that was actually good. That was a good
that was
good
definitely
line.
a C word. That was giving cunt. I was like, okay.
It
and
was,
then also I thought, and again, this really isn't about her necessarily or her delivery, but I do think that the moment of the hag like giving the apple to Snow and her accepting the apple was clever, and I wish there was more of that cleverness infused throughout the story, because they gave some nice backstory around like why she would take an apple from a strange, scary
she was
old lady.
Like, you know, she was like, she had the necklace that she said that Jonathan gave her, which of course was given to Jonathan by Snow White. So it made sense. Like, she was like, oh, I recognize the necklace. Like, okay, like I'm worried about Jonathan. She was like, I also knew your father. Like, I liked that.
Yes, and this is an act of generosity that I'm paying forward in honor of your dear father. Please let me do this, you know, to help you, whatever. And she takes the apple. And again, one image that they did actually nail is when she does collapse, and then you see
out of her hand
unfurl, and the apple with a bite out of it goes rolling in. It's like, oh, okay.
It was a great shot.
Which is the only good moment for that apple, because before that, I would have loved to see the green slime,
the green goo,
turn into a skull. And instead, it was like a shrunken head, like creepy, like voodoo doll thing. I was like, no, this is not.
Yeah, like probably the most iconic image of 1937 version is like the apple coming out of the slime.
And I mean, like, Disney as a corporation, are they not? Think of the merchandising opportunities, like also T-shirt, handbag, candy, like jewelry. Like, there's so many things that image could have been on and incorporated into, and instead they were like, nah, let's go like shrunken head. I was like, all right, well.
And Disney like still uses that image to this day.
Yeah,
like from that original movie. Like,
yeah,
it's iconic, and I cannot believe that they just did not give it to us the way it should have been. Nope.
Wasn't there.
Nope. And then finally, this is the last thing. Holy shit. Okay. But I think we've already like kind of touched on aspects of this, but just overall, the clunkiness of the whole script, the writing, like it just was so like all over the place. You could tell that for me specifically, it felt like they took the movie Wish, the 1937 version of Snow White, and just said, let's put them in a blender and hope for the best. That's literally how the script felt to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say looking at it with fresh eyes this morning, like sleeping on it last night. Because listen, if you think we were being harsh today in this episode, you should have heard what we were saying yesterday.
This was actually, we were pretty good. I feel like we were pretty good.
We're being generous.
Being generous.
I'll say, so what I think it is, if there's one single thing that I feel like Umbrella like encapsulates every issue that I have with this film, it's that like I really just wish that they like did not market it as Snow White. It's just not.
Yeah.
It's just not Snow White.
Because
I'm
it's
like,
not Snow White.
literally, they could have just changed her character's name to like whatever, like Princess Josephine, and I'd be like, okay, sure. And then and then I'd be like, all right, great, fine. This is an original movie. It's like Enchanted. It's like got contemporary
it's like a
music.
tribute.
Yep, exactly. There's little Easter eggs to other
like
Disney
Easter eggs. Sure.
Great. Okay, fine.
Honestly,
I would have liked it a lot more.
If they did that, like for the Disney 100, I would have been so here for it, and just, you know, it not be marketed as Snow White and obviously like change the visuals. But like, I actually kind of think I would have enjoyed it a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, question mark? I don't know.
Yeah. But to change like a solid, I'm literally not even 50%. It's like 60 to 70% of the story. They removed almost all of the original songs. They completely cut characters and added new ones, major ones. Like, I just feel like there's so much that I'm like, why did you even just make Snow White? You should have just made a different film. And I think that's really what it is.
Yeah.
Is like there's just this core identity crisis that colors every aspect of this movie, from the story to the writing to the music to the performances to the characterizations, the visuals, the aesthetic of the costumes and the scenic design. Like, just every aspect of this is just like in so many different movies and universes, and it's like no one's on the same page.
There's absolutely no cohesion. Like, you can tell, like, I said this yesterday, but it just like makes me sad. Like, as like a Disney like super fan, which you are as well, like, I just feel like it makes me feel like fans are not who is in like these settings writing these movies and like putting out like special pieces of art that, like, you know, are that pay tribute to like the OG versions and like movies that we're all so passionate about. But I don't know, it's just,
I think the other thing that hurts especially, and again, and I'll say this admitting that I'm not a Snow White purist or a Snow White girly necessarily, it's just that, like, even if you're a Disney fan at all, you know that Snow White is like the crown jewel. That is the singular, like, that is what made Walt Disney Studios like on the map, that cemented them. That's why they were able to celebrate their 100th anniversary a couple years ago. Like, it's because of Snow White. Like,
yeah.
So
and that iconic
this is
image
not the
of
movie to like trip and fall,
to like play around.
Yeah,
Totally.
like, it's just,
there's that iconic image of like Walt Disney with like his Oscar for the movie and then the 7 small Oscars next to him, like for the 7 Dwarves. Like, yeah, they really, it just felt like they put no care and like, I don't know, thought into it.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It's sad.
It's tough.
Like,
it's really sad.
I mean, if you were gonna like do a swing and a miss, I'm like, I got dozens of clunkers that you've made over the years that I could say, yeah, you could remake that one. I don't care if it sucks. Tarzan, go for it. Like, I don't care. But like,
I love Tarzan.
I knew you would, bitch. Happy Aries season. My thing is,
exactly.
But to me, I'm like, I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm like, pick something that's like less, you know, like iconic, beloved, like his, you know, whatever. Like, it's just Snow White of all of the ones to really mess up that badly is really just a shame.
It is a shame.
So,
on that note,
that said, I think we're going to do something a little bit more positive to end with our little kind of like a compliment sandwich, because we started strong by talking about the good, and we're going to close by talking about some positive things too. So instead of our usual drink or drag, where we usually say like, do you like or hate this thing? Because as you heard, we have notes to say politely. I'm going to ask instead that we just say, let's drink. What's one thing that you would like drink to about this film, that you would toast and say like, this was really solid. I really appreciated and enjoyed this. I thought it was a really good thing. They did this successfully. Be my guest.
You go first.
Yeah, I'll say as like the framer of that question, I will say, like, I really do feel like, we said this earlier, so I'm just bringing it back, but I really do feel like where they were their strongest in this movie, and I mean in every aspect, so this is encompassing a lot of things, the visuals, the aesthetic, like the singing and performances, and like the world of it all in general, where this movie shined the strongest was literally the original source material.
100%.
Whistle While You Work and Heigh, but Whistle While You Work specifically were triumphant. And I was like, if the whole movie was like that, I would have walked out and been like, that was excellent. They knocked it out of the park. This movie's going to make $1 billion. Like, this is the new greatest live action film. They did a great job. And yet those were, in my view, literally the only 2 good parts of the whole movie.
Yeah, and for mine, I think we should give credit where credit's due. Like Rachel Zegler, I thought her voice was amazing.
Never doubted
was
it for a
beautiful.
second. She sounded wonderful.
Yeah, like
gorgeous.
she sounded wonderful. I mean, and that was honestly like a highlight for me. Like hearing her sing the songs was great, especially the classic songs. Like when she was singing "Whistle While You Work," and
Yep.
you know, like
Yeah.
I was like, this is amazing. Like
Yep.
it was really, really good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yep. So I would say, would you have any like parting thoughts for people who have made it this far into the episode and are interested and not totally scared away from going to see it? Like, is there something you wish you knew going into it, or like you wish that you had looked at it with this lens or perspective now that you've had some time?
I think looking at it through the lens of like, you know, look at it as like what we said. It almost feels like a tribute movie to like many Disney movies and like many Disney classics. Like honestly, if you look at it through the lens of like, this probably should have been like the Disney 100 movie that like, you know, kind of does more so in a way like what Wish was supposed to do.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I think looking at it through that lens like helps a lot. Like don't go into it thinking that you're going to watch like a remake of Snow White and you'll be disappointed. So
yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's what I would say. I would say like you don't need to watch the original beforehand. In fact, I recommend you don't.
Yeah, don't.
I think that you should just like go in and be like, I'm here to hear some upbeat contemporary musical theater and gorgeous gowns. Gorgeous
gowns. Some really great visuals, I will say.
Sure.
Some great visuals. Yep. And some not so great.
And I'll say also something I wish I knew in advance. If you need a bathroom break in the middle of the movie, anytime that Jonathan's on screen, you are welcome to get up and take a nice long... You can take a number 2 if you want. There's plenty of time.
Literally, anytime that Jonathan and his acting troupe are on screen, you're good to go.
You go, yep. Oh, is there a line at the popcorn stand? Don't worry about it. I'll text you when you can come back. It's fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I wish I knew that, but...
Same.
Well, that's our show.
That's our show. Oh, I do feel much better about this version of this episode.
I do too. I think it feels, you know what, that's a good solid message too that I got from Snow White. Kindness is really important. And I feel like my heart feels lighter today being a little bit more generous with this film than I did last night. I went to bed last night with my hair on fire being like, God, that sucked.
Yeah, me too.
So I feel a little better today being like, you know what? It's just different. It's just different. You know what I mean? There's a lid for all pots, honey.
Lid for all pots. And you know, like the audience score says, like this might be some people's cup of tea.
People really like it. Yeah. Me myself, I'm gonna go watch The Little Mermaid after this.
Period.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Great.
Well, until next time, this was Ears to It. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening for our lucky 13th episode, baby. We did it.
Lucky 13.
Yep, we made it, honey. I'm Erik.
I'm Nick.
And this was Ears to It.
See you real soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.